Morning. You're on Messy in the Middle with Jeanie. I am Jeanie, and I am messy, and I am in the middle. I'm in the middle of everything middle aged, middle class, middle America, and I am talking to you about my life experiences. And last week we talked about my daughter, my oldest daughter. She is not my oldest child, but she is the first child that I had. So I am kind of going in order of age and introduction into my world. So, um, as I stated last week, I didn't really ever plan on being a parent. And I found that whatever you believe, God, the universe, whatever, has kind of a different plan sometimes. And um, what you're meant to do, what your destiny is really often has nothing to do with you and your decision making. So I had decided I was not having children, and I found myself pregnant, and it is by far the best thing that I've ever done. The best decision I ever made was to become a parent when I found out that that possibility was in my future. So, um, before I get into this video, this one, I'm going to talk about Isaac, and I did talk about him and his medical history in a couple of videos before. In this video, I just kind of want to talk about Isaac the person. All of my kids are a little different. They all have a little bit different personality and different way. Oh, you'll have to excuse my cat. He's obnoxious. He's very loud. He's part Maine Coon, and we had no idea when we got him that Maine Coons are some of the loudest animals on the planet. So you'll hear him occasionally in my videos, and I think I've talked about him before, but if you're new, that's what that is. It is not a dying anything. It is my cat. Um, and I promise he's well fed and well cared for, although he's had a little bit of a rough life. We'll talk about him another time. So Isaac was uh, after I had my first child, I had my tubes tied. I was a single parent at that point because the father of my first daughter was no longer in the picture. And I was happy to be her mom, and I was not wanting to be in a situation again where I was a single parent of another child because something didn't work out with the person that I was with. And there's a lot of history that goes into that that I'll get into in another video, but just be aware that I, um, there are some things that in my history that lend themselves to the possibility of things not working out with another person. Teaser. um, so I was very concerned about being a single mom of multiple children. And I did not want that for myself. And they offered getting a tubal as an option, which I don't even think they do that anymore, but maybe. They offered getting a tubal as an option. I was young, and so the idea that, I mean, I was 23 when I had her, so the idea that they would offer a tubal to a 23-year-old um, as an option was, um, it seems a little unorthodox to me, but maybe they still do. And it wasn't offered by the doctor. It was honestly, he tried to talk me out of it. Um, Reason being, once you have a tubal, if you can have it reversed, but when you have it reversed, you are more likely to have a tubal pregnancy after that, and um, they don't want you to have that experience because it ends up being a whole problem and potential surgery um, and the fetus not implanting where it's supposed to and all kinds of things. So in order to save you the heartache, they don't encourage that, and they are very clear about all of the potential um, things that could go wrong about that. But I did have a tubal, and I did have the tubal reversed in order to have that surgery done. I was made to lose quite a bit of weight. I think you may remember in the video that I did about my daughter, I said that I gained quite a bit of weight, which I did. Um, I think I gained somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 pounds, which is not necessary. She was not a huge child. She was 7 pounds 10 ounces, so there's no reason why I had to be that big. I had to put on that much weight, and I was still close enough to a time period where they were just starting to encourage you to be really healthy when you were pregnant. And keep in mind, this was 25 years ago. Um, they were just starting to encourage you to be really healthy and watchful of what you ate and all of those things, and not just jump into pregnancy as though you're eating for two and you need to pack on weight because that's how the baby's going to be healthy, and all of the things that they used to say that they don't say anymore. Um, the it ended up being um, it ended up being very difficult for me to lose the weight afterwards. So if you're out there and you're considering getting pregnant and you're wondering, mm, I would say 100% go for the healthier, um, certainly not dieting, but I don't think it's necessary to eat for two. Um, Maybe 1 1/4. Um, it just will save you a lot of heartache in the long run. I was So my pregnancies were very easy as a rule. I did not. I would sometimes forget I was even pregnant, not because I didn't know I was pregnant, but it was just in my day to day, taking care of things, doing things. With my first child, I um, I just kind of lived and did my stuff, and you know, I would sometimes turn and my belly would get in the way and knock something down, or bump into something, and I'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, it's bigger than usual. And but as far as being really sick or having a lot of issues, I did not have that with my first pregnancy. I did put on a lot of weight, but beyond that, the biggest problem that I had was um, that I my hips would lock up, and that is due to an injury that I had when I was in the military. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I was, I really struggled sometimes with when I got later on in my pregnancy and started um, and was heavier, and it just really exacerbated what was already going on with my hip. So um, I ended up struggling towards the end. to be, everybody struggles to be comfortable, let's be real. But I ended up struggling to not have a lot of pain. And because when you're pregnant, you can't take any kind of pain medication. Um, Tylenol is all they'll let you have, which I don't know about you, but for me, it's like sucking on Tic Tacs. You might as I feel like Tylenol for me doesn't work. Um, I use ibuprofen. I have for a long time when I have extreme pain and I need to, at the very least, just take the edge off. I'll use ibuprofen. Um, so for Tylenol, I tried it when I was pregnant that first time because I was struggling, but it didn't seem to really help. And um, so I hope for you that it's different. I hope that if you are pregnant or you plan to become pregnant and you do have pain, that Tylenol is helpful for you. Or I should say acetaminophen, not specifically Tylenol. Um, so let's see. My second pregnancy. My second pregnancy um, was the result of me having my tubal reversed. By that point, I was married and I was married to um, my ex husband was in the Army. And um, we decided that we wanted children together. He really loved my daughter, but we also wanted to have other children. So in order for me to have that tubal reversed, I had to lose quite a bit of weight. Um, and they gave me a weight goal, and I had to meet that before they would be willing to do the surgery. Because their reasoning was when you're heavier, it's harder to get pregnant. I'm not 100% certain about the statistics or the medical whatever behind that. Um, but that's what I was told. So they also warned me that the only um, that because I had had the tubal and I'm having it reversed, that oftentimes the egg, when released, doesn't get to where it needs to go, and that could result in a tubal pregnancy, or that could result in um, nothing at all. Just not getting pregnant, depending on scar tissue and all of that with the reversal. So I um, went ahead and lost the weight, and that was a challenge. It's always been a challenge for me to lose weight. I can put on weight like nobody's business. If I'm trying to build muscle, I can build muscle like easy. And I maintain muscle pretty well. But it works the same way with not muscle. So if I put on weight, I put on weight pretty easily and I keep it. My body likes to hold on to it. So, um, and I know there's a fancy name for that, but I can never remember which morph it is. Endo, meso, whatever. I can never remember which one it is. Anyway, I'm sure somebody knows, and if you know, you can comment. But it's not really important to the video. So I am. So I went ahead and I lost the weight. I did a lot of gym time. My daughter. Oh, there's the cat again. My daughter was little, and um, I would go during the day. There was a little daycare there, and she was about 3 at the time. And there's a little daycare there. Yeah, she was 3. There was a daycare, and so I would go and I would go to the gym and I would walk on the treadmill for lots and lots of time. spend a lot of time on the treadmill. Again, my hip causes me issues, which then messes with my back, etc. It's a whole thing. But anyway, because of all that, it's a little bit harder to get the cardio in that it takes to lose weight. So I, um, and I'm sure I'll have all kinds of you just be telling me, well, just do this. Trust me, I'm 50. I probably tried it. So I have, that's a whole nother video for a whole nother time. But the, so I went ahead and lost the weight. I satisfied all the other things necessary for me to have the surgery, and I ended up having the surgery. They make you wait for a month, and um, before you can start trying. And as soon as we started trying, I became pregnant. It was a healthy pregnancy. It was, and I think I talked about this a little bit when I was talking about Isaac in his medical uh, video, because I want you to understand that he started out completely normal. And my pregnancy was normal. They did one of the blood sugar tests, and he was growing. He was very large. And so they did one of the blood sugar tests, and my blood sugar was slightly elevated, probably because I had forgotten to fast, I'm going to be honest. And so then they made me do the 3 hour one where you have to drink all that syrupy stuff. Yeah, so bad. Ugh, I hope for any of you that you don't have to do that. But I mean, it's tolerable, whatever. It's not the end of the world, but it's also not awesome. So I ended up doing that. And I did not have gestational diabetes. So that was not a thing. But it definitely, um, it was an experience. So moving on. Isaac was born. As soon as my labor started progressing, they um, went ahead and did the cesarean. And I alluded to that in the last video. I think when you had a cesarean back then, they didn't always encourage you to do a vaginal delivery after that. They really felt like there was a lot of risk associated with that. And so you had the choice, but you were not encouraged to do that, um, to elect the choice of vaginal birth. Now, maybe in other areas you might have been, but where I was not. So I think it probably depends on where you live. Um, so I went ahead and elected for cesarean. So as soon as I started progressing in my labors, as soon as my labor started progressing and I started dilating, they went ahead and did the cesarean. Um, which was not the case with my second son. We'll talk about that in the next video. Holy cow. But anyway, point being, he was delivered cesarean. He was 9 pounds, 1 ounce. He was on his due date. And I think we talked about that in a previous video too. Um, he was happy and easy and laughed all the time. And Isaac means laughter. Um, he literally was laughing all the time. He was so happy and chubby and squishy and snuggly. And he just wanted to be, he wanted to be with you, and he was just always smiling and happy. Um, such a, such a joy. And at the time, my older daughter was also always smiling and happy. They were best friends. They were like, you could not separate the two of them. They were always together. They always wanted to be together. and they played together and they were so happy together. And it was really fun to have the two of them as young children. She was 4 when, well, she was almost 4 when he was born, and gosh, it was fun. We had a great time, and um, then he grew quickly. We lived in Hawaii at the time, and when people would see him, I can't tell you the number of times I heard like a Samoan baby because he was so big. And he filled up his little, little carrier car seats. He filled that thing up. He was not even 6 months old, and he was filling that thing up. He was a big boy, um, and he, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We we really were happy. Um, the day that he developed his brain infection and ended up in the hospital, of course, the brain infection came. I'm I'm sure several days earlier, but the day that we ended up in the hospital was really life changing, and um, that was something that we would have never expected based on how healthy he was and how um, happy he was, and he was just you would have never thought that anything like that would be coming. Um, but I will tell you that throughout his life, through all of the medical and all of the stressful, Asmer, his name is Asmer. I don't know. This is my cat. He's ridiculous. Can't. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Um, but Isaac was through his whole life was patient and sweet and kind and gosh, even with everything that he went through, he was just this very peaceful soul. And the number of people who, family and friends, and certainly those of us that lived in the house with him, that really enjoyed just being around him because he was just this very calming presence. Um, it, it's crazy to me how he went through so much and was still so peaceful. So let that be a lesson to you. It's possible to be peaceful and have a peaceful heart and a peaceful soul, even if you're going through hell. So I hope you have a really good day. This is Jeanie with Missy in the Middle.